Hey everyone, welcome to Philip in the Cloud. Back from last week, I was away, and we're here today or I'm here today to talk to you about some interesting new functionality in ibis that sort of just emerged from some of the work we've been doing in collaboration with the team. And we're going to talk about how kind of PyArrow helps plumb all the bits together so that we can, quote unquote, have nice things. And one of those things is kind of bringing together disparate data sources. You have data in Postgres, or you have database in data stored in Snowflake, and you want to do something with those things, um, and you're like not sure how to, where you want to do the compute, etc. There's some interesting functionality in ibis that sort of lets you make some of those choices about how you want to do that, and even do maybe a bit of compute on those data. So let's jump right in. We'll fire up IPython. We'll do the interactive import from ibis.interactive import star. We're going to import the OS module so that we can connect to Snowflake right away. You give it a URL which has like credentials and so forth, and so that's why it's behind an environment variable. I have a running Postgres instance on this machine, and I'm going to connect to that. And you can kind of do the usual things. You can look at tables, pgcon dot. If you just look at tables, we've got a bunch. This is the testing data set, a testing database. So it has a bunch of things that are just in there for testing, and it looks kind of random. It's not. These are all tables that are designed to test specific use cases for ibis, and it's not. It's not a sort of well-modeled database, I guess is what you would say. And similarly for Snowflake. Um, let's also let's pull out a couple of tables. So in sort of the let's pull out the batting table, which is a table containing data from an R packages data set, the Laman database, baseball database. And you can do the usual things. You can repr it and look at the data in here, and it's got data about baseball players, the year, the team, the league, and various baseball statistics. There's also a table of awards, and we're going to pull that one from Snowflake. Snowflake is generally a bigger system. It also runs in the cloud, so the latency is going to be noticeably higher versus a local Postgres instance. And again, we can look at that too. It's going to take. It's pretty snappy actually. It looks like it's probably yeah the cloud sort of instances are up and running. So it's pretty quick to get the first few rows. Um, but now it's like, okay, well, what do I do with this now? Like I want to actually join these and sort of figure out, maybe like, in what, stint from the batting table did a player get the most awards? Like that's a query we could potentially run here, a question we might be able to answer. Um, but the first thing we'd have to do is actually join those tables together. And like IBIS right now, and probably not ever, but I never say never. Um, doesn't just let you sort of transparently join backends together, right? Let's say I want to join batting on player ID or something like that. Uh, Something like that. It's going to give you an error saying, "Hey, I found multiple backends for this expression. Not really sure what to do with that." And there's a number of problems associated with this challenge. Like, where should the compute happen? Should it happen locally on whatever machine you're running ibis on? Should you take one side of the join and put it in the other side's backend? Like, there's sort of all these unanswered questions that are really difficult to answer. And so like ibis is not, to do this you need kind of metadata and a bunch of other things. Um, so and ibis is not really going to kind of grow a meta store anytime soon. Hopefully never. Um, but we still may want to actually do something with these, and really sort of the power of PyArrow kind of comes in here. And every method, or sorry, every backend in ibis at this point has a method called toPyArrow batches, which will convert any expression into a lazy stream of PyArrow record batches. And it turns out that like some of our backends can actually do compute on the record batches directly, and DuckDB is pretty nice for this because it supports nearly all the PyArrow objects you might want to throw at it. So we can't IBIS can't make a decision about where to put your data that's sort of like optimal, but it can let you bring those two things together locally with a fast and memory efficient compute engine like DuckDB with like minimum hassle. So let's just do that. So the left side of our join is going to be let's see, what did I actually put up here? Right, the awards players table. And so first we fired up a DuckDB connection, which is in memory. Although if it needs to spill to disk, it will actually do that. And then we're gonna call this read in memory method, which is a slight misnomer. It doesn't actually necessarily read something into memory. So like if your PyArrow batches are not technically in memory yet, the backend is going to emit them, in batches as like requested by Python's, iterator protocol. And you'll see that like was basically created instantaneously. And awards players, I don't even remember. Awards players is coming from Snowflake. So like at most, or actually, there shouldn't be any data read necessarily, because IBIS already knows the schema and it can tell DuckDB like, hey, you're gonna get a record batch of this type, so like get ready, more or less. And that's why it sort of is really fast. And we can do the same thing for the right side, and those are instantaneous basically, because all that's needed to construct this thing is a bit of metadata on the DuckDB side, and which is coming from the schema of ibis. And we can just sort of do the join. We can say, let's say expr. Actually, let's just call this joined. And we can say left.join right, and we want to join on sort of all these columns: player ID, year ID, league ID. Let's see. And so that also returned immediately, and we can look at the results. Boom. What we actually did here was we took data in Snowflake and data in a local Postgres instance, and we used DuckDB to join them with PyArrow, with the help of PyArrow. In fact, we couldn't really do it without PyArrow, at least efficiently, right? We might have to pull out data into Python, make a temp table in one of the databases, use that to join, etc., or make a temp table in DuckDB, use that to join. But with sort of the power of ibis, like backed by the power of PyArrow, we can actually just take record batches, stream them directly from the backend out, and do the join kind of wherever you happen to be doing your computing. And this kind of reinforces some of the nice things about ibis, which is that it sort of lets you compute on your data wherever the data are, as well as wherever you are. And the really interesting, or another really interesting thing is like, if you happen to be doing a bunch of computation on one side of the join, that's all going to happen in the backend. And the backend is going to stream those batches out directly into, PyArrow batches on the client side. So that is sort of what we did here today, and I hope you enjoyed. Please get involved and in touch on the IBIS issue tracker, or go to ibis-project.org, and see everyone next week.